Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein. This week's guest is one of the great Olympic swimmers in history, the legendary John Naber. John was a 5-time medalist at the 1976 Olympics in Montreal and a 4-time world record holder. He also helped lead USC to 4 consecutive NCAA championships. Following his graduation, John stepped out of the pool and went to work for Disney, and also into the broadcast booth, and also became a much sought-after motivational speaker. John is a busy guy. John is also an author, so he and I have a standing date to exchange books very soon. John has been very active with the Olympic Alumni Organization for many years, and he is the president of the Olympians and Paralympians Relief Fund. I became aware of their efforts during the horrific fires in Southern California and how they were able to help so many former athletes who were impacted. A very, very engaging conversation with John on this episode, and he even told us a story about Kobe that I had never even heard of. Enjoy this episode, folks, and as always, I'll see you on the backside. So, welcome, John Naber, to the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. John, it's so great to meet you. You know, I followed your career. I was, still in college, but I was following your career when you were an amazing swimmer. I know we're kind of neighbors, right? Because you're in the Pasadena area. I'm in South Pasadena. So it's nice to finally meet you, my friend. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Well,
Life is good.
Well, thanks for joining me, man. I want to get into a few things with you. John, you're obviously, this, but the audience might not remember that you're one of the greatest swimmers in Olympic history, going back to the Montreal Olympics in '76. I always like to start off a conversation, especially with someone that we haven't really met before, find out where it all started, my friend. Where did the swimming bug begin with John Naber?
Well, the story I like to tell is that I wanted to be an Olympian before I knew what sport.
Really?
Yeah, I lived in Europe, and my family traveled to Olympia, Greece. And when I was 10, I learned about the Olympic ideals and the spirit of the gods and
Uh-huh.
sportsmanship and fair play. And I said to my mom, I'd like to be an Olympian someday. She says, what sport? I said, I don't know. I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
I learned how to swim when I was young, but I didn't join a swim team until I returned to the United States. And it was actually my freshman year in high school
Mm-hmm.
when I sat next to a kid in algebra class whose name appeared in the local box scores as a silver medalist at the Junior Olympics. And therefore, he was the second fastest 13, 14-year-old in the country. And to me, that meant that he was a celebrity.
Ah.
I befriended Jeff, and I asked if we could be buddies, and he invited me to join the swim team. He walked through the locker room and jumped in the pool in the fast lane. I walked through the locker room and jumped in the pool in the slow lane, and I got the most improved award that year, and the year after, and the year after that.
Wow, that's amazing.
I started late, but I improved quickly. The sport was, I was built for the sport of swimming.
Yeah.
Big hands, floppy joints, loose ankles.
Uh-huh.
I was just very, very fluid.
Yeah.
And the sport found me.
That's so interesting. And were you tall as a teenager? I mean, you're tall
Yes.
now.
Yeah, no, as I said, I returned from Europe.
Yeah.
We didn't play basketball and football in Europe. So first day of high school PE, I was the first kid picked for the basketball team.
Yeah.
And on the second day of high school PE, I was the last kid picked for the basketball team.
That's so interesting.
I'm tall, but I can't dribble, shoot, run, pass, jump, anything of that nature. So I found my sport.
But you're a hell of an athlete in the pool, so that's amazing. So when you went to the Olympics in '76, how old were you? 20?
Right,
So
yeah.
were you going to USC at that point?
Correct. It was the summer between my junior and senior year.
Yeah. And at SC, you guys won 4 consecutive NCAA championships. I'm sure you were pretty much the anchor of that whole situation, right?
Well, we had a wonderful class.
Mhm.
My incoming freshman class and outgoing senior class. A lot of Olympians, a lot of national titles, a bunch of world records. We were very fortunate. I wasn't the only one who carried the weight,
Mm-hmm.
but we all did our bit, and we all enjoy the title and get the ring.
Yeah. What lured you to SC of all? I'm sure you were probably recruited across the board, right? But But
Well, it's a bit of a story.
yeah.
The year before my senior year, my junior year in high school was also an Olympic year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the year I clowned around on a diving board and missed the water. I
Oy,
broke my collarbone and put this dimple in my cheek right here.
damn.
I was out for the season. That's the season that the college coaches recruit you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not heavily recruited in my senior year,
Yeah.
and I decided to stay in California and wanted to go to a swim school. And at the time, that meant Stanford, Cal, USC, or UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
All of my Ladera Oaks Country Club teammates were going to UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
So I was recruited at UCLA, but at USC, it just seemed like a better choice for my style.
Yeah.
And it worked out. It worked
Yeah.
out for all the right reasons.
Amazing. So let's talk about the '76 Olympics in Montreal. Like I said, I was in college then. I was fully aware of what was going on. But you're 20 years old. You're on the Olympic stage. I mean, Mark Spitz had sort of set the table, before you in '72 with 7 gold medals. I mean, can you talk about the pressure of that, of being an Olympian?
I felt no pressure whatsoever
Hmm.
because any pressure would have been on somebody who could have won 8 gold medals. I entered in 5 events, so at best I could be too short of Spitz.
Uh-huh.
Nobody was ever comparing me to him.
Uh-huh.
Um, and frankly, at the time, there was no money, no sponsorship. I wasn't beholden to anybody.
Mm.
So the pressure that I think athletes might feel today, I don't recall it whatsoever.
Mm.
I went and had a good time. I was told early in my career, if you treat every workout as if it's the Olympics,
Mhm.
when you get to the Olympics, it'll seem like just another workout.
Really? I hadn't heard that before. I mean, had Apollo Ono on, and he just talked about the monumental pressure, and speed skating is a whole different ball game, of course. But yeah, that's a refreshing attitude, my friend. That's great. So you're 20 years old. You're competing at the Olympics. You win 5 medals, right? 4 of them were world record breaking, accomplishments, which is amazing. And then, of course, you're only 24 when the 1980 Olympics roll around, and there was the boycott. Were you planning to go to the '80 Olympics, or what was the plan for you at that point?
Oh no, when I entered USC, I planned to retire from the sport of swimming at the end of my senior year.
Really?
In April 1977, that
Uh-huh.
was my last competitive swim.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, I got a phone call inviting me to be a color commentator for my sport for ABC.
Mm-hmm.
That led to the opportunity to work with NBC, who owned the rights to Moscow. I was slated to go as a broadcaster,
Mm-hmm.
but the boycott hit us all, so I didn't go, and
Wow.
nobody went.
Yeah.
And it was, I often say that perhaps only Bruce Jenner and John Naber benefited from the boycott because we got to be America's recent champions for another 4 years.
That's a good way to put it. John, I like your optimistic attitude, my friend. I mean, it's very refreshing. Definitely. So let's talk about that. You made this decision to leave the sport, to retire. You're 21 years old, graduating college. I mean, obviously you had achieved an amazing accomplishment as an athlete. Then you're transitioning into the real world, so to speak, right? What was your first job out of college? Because I have a few things here. Did you join Disney at that point, or what was
That's
going on?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. My dad woke up in the middle of the night and said, I know where John should work. My image at the time was an all-American goody two-shoes.
Ah.
And he thought, Disney, that's the reputation. John lives down there. And as it turns out, one phone call to the USC alumni office got me an interview at the Disney with another USC alum. And I got hired in their marketing trainee program. And I worked out of the Disney studio, out of the Walt Disney theme park. But my check came from the Disney studio. So I was employed from the headquarters, but my first post was down there at the theme park.
Mm-hmm.
And because I worked at the theme park, I had to shave off the mustache. At the time, those are the rules. No facial hair.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
I worked there for 7 or 8, maybe 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
But in the middle of that, I started getting phone calls to do broadcasting, motivational speaking, and the company was very nice to allow me to take long weekends and go chase other opportunities. And after 9 months, they said, John, perhaps a sabbatical
Mm.
would be in good order. Why don't you take a sabbatical, go ahead and do all the Olympic related stuff, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Mm.
The sabbatical lasted for 22 years.
And you obviously enjoyed that time at Disney, I'm sure,
I loved
right?
it. I
Yeah.
loved it. They're still some of my closest friends. I had dinner just a week ago with my former boss, who's now in Seattle,
Uh-huh.
and it's a family. The Disney family concept was real.
Yeah.
My dad was right. If the phone hadn't been ringing for other jobs, I'd probably still be at Disney.
Oh, that's amazing. Dedicated and loyal team members, they call them, right?
Well, yes.
And then you started working for Speedo. What were you?
Well, that's not as an employee. They
Yeah.
basically hired me as an endorsement deal,
Uh-huh.
which along carried with it a bunch of personal appearances, and I did a bunch of swimming clinics around the world
Oh,
for Speedo. And Speedo was the product that I wore. It's the
sure.
only product I wore,
Yeah.
so I was happy to sign on with them again.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what they're signing people up now, it was a pittance.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was happy to have it. It was something more than zero.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say, Andy, you have made as much money as a competitive swimmer as I did. I only made money as a retired athlete.
Yeah, it's so interesting about how things have changed, right? With the word amateur is no longer in the conversation. I mean, I was with the Dream Team in '92, as the NBA photographer, and I was assigned to the Dream Team, and that changed everything pretty much, to see professional. Well, there were other professionals playing for other countries, but we had never sent professionals before. So,
To be clear, Andy, the word amateur left the International Olympic Committee charter in 1982.
mm-hmm.
They allowed every sport to determine their own rules of eligibility.
I didn't know
And
that.
sports sort of, folded one at a time. Soccer had athletes. They were allowed 3 pros per team. Hockey started letting them in, so it opened up over time. And now there is no such thing as an amateur athlete in the Olympics. They're all professional.
So interesting. So, John, in 2000, you wrote a book, which I haven't read yet, and I wasn't actually aware of your book. So we're going to have to get together because we'll exchange books, okay? But yes, there you go. So what prompted the desire to write the book, and what did you learn from writing the book, and kind of similar experiences to the Olympians that you interviewed?
Well, in addition to my occasional appearances on television and motivational speaking,
Mm-hmm.
well, actually, motivational speaking became the bread and butter of my career. That's where the bulk of my income occurred. Broadcasting didn't pay that well,
Mm-hmm.
but it provided a great deal of exposure, which invited more invitations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many motivational speakers have overcome remarkable things like burns over 90% of their body, or, they were held hostage for 2.5 years, or overcame addictions like alcohol or drugs.
Mm-hmm.
My story wasn't nearly as interesting. I couldn't, when I do my motivational speaking, I tell them how I did it, but I also tell them how Mary Lou Retton or Greg Louganis or Carl Lewis have also done it. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about an Olympic gold medal process that
Mm-hmm.
all athletes go through. But my story isn't that exciting. And so I didn't feel I had a book
Mm-hmm.
in me.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew a lot of other Olympians. Through my broadcasting, I've covered 30 different Olympic sports. I met a wide variety of Olympians. So together,
Mm-hmm.
I contacted all of these guys, and we each wrote a chapter, and we contributed the chapter to the book.
Mm.
And so that's how the book became an anthology of Olympic motivational stories. All of these Olympians are motivational speakers.
That's
All of
amazing.
them
Yeah.
told stories, and all of them were able to sell copies of this book at their events. So that's how it started.
Yeah.
But Andy, you may not be aware, I've written 2 other books, and I've contributed to 2 other books as a co-author. So, I guess I like to communicate. If I
Mm-hmm.
were to summarize my current role, it's that of a teacher. I like
Mm-hmm.
to teach people how to do things.
So
And that's
interesting.
how I was able to leverage. I say the ability to swim quickly on your back has limited value in society at large.
Right.
However, I spent 8 years of my life devoted to it, and I wanted to benefit from it, and that is to share the process with other people.
Yeah, amazing. So, John, I spent 20 years with a guy named Kobe Bryant, and from, a teenager to a Grizzly veteran, 5-time champion, Olympic gold medalist twice, blah, blah, blah. What I learned from him every single day watching him play and his mental preparation and everything else, and then we did our book together, The Mamba Mentality. One of the pillars of that is curiosity. Is like finding out what makes somebody else great in some other way of life or some other business. And that's how Kobe actually won the Oscar, because he partnered with John Williams because he was curious about John Williams's process. So Was that part of the process for you as well? Like, you're obviously great. You're one of the greatest of all time, but you're talking to other people who have achieved greatness in other sports than yours. Did you find like some synergy from that? And did you learn anything more maybe about yourself through other people's stories?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do believe that it's good to be a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're a world record holder, you can always have done something better.
Mm-hmm.
You can always improve on it. So even my parents instilled in me a lifelong curiosity, learn how to do things, learn how to do them better. And so as I was a high schooler, I would research the training regimen of the existing world record holder, who was an East German named Roland Mathis. And in order to get extra push at the end of the stroke and the backstroke, he would train with a shot put. He would throw the shot put in the air and catch it in his hand. And as a result, his wrists became very powerful.
Ah.
And so I would, think of those things, and I would learn how to power my wrist and whatever. And that helped me be a better swimmer. And so when I meet other athletes, I ask them, what did sport teach you that helps you be successful in life?
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, everybody has a different story, but they all come back to the lifelong lessons we learn. So it's a work ethic, overcoming obstacles, how to be a team member, how to follow the rules. And that's what that book was all about. But also, Olympians are also very innovative, and they'll create new ways to learn or new ways to improve. I wrote a book called Eureka, How Innovation Changes the Olympics. And I learned that the two most innovative industries in the world are the military and sport. How many golf clubs have you bought as the brand new way to hit the ball farther, right?
Right.
So, and the reason being is that in those two areas, coming in second is not a viable alternative.
Right. Right.
If you're Avis Rent-A-Car, you're still making a lot of money. But, if you get a silver medal and you could have won gold, it's so heartbreaking that people are always thinking of new ways to succeed. So we're very innovative. We're quick to learn new things, quick to adopt new methods that work. And I think those are life lessons that would benefit anybody in business and in the arts, life insurance, whatever it is you want to do. We can all learn from each other.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. So, John, I became aware of what you're currently doing, which I wasn't even aware of the organization, Olympians and Paralympians Relief Fund, through our good friend Jamie Maggio's story. And I reached out to her. That's how I got in touch with you. So you're the president of the organization. Can you tell me how that all started? What's the mission, and where are we going from here? Because the work that you guys did during the fires in LA really caught my attention, and I believe a lot of people's attention.
Okay, well, sure. In 1996, I was invited to attend a meeting of the U.S. Olympic Alumni Association, and I was elected president. And for the next 8 years, I served a couple of terms as president of the U.S. Olympic Alumni. It was then called, or it's now called USOPA, U.S. Olympians and Paralympians Association. And in one of my earlier meetings, one of the other members said, I live in a town where there's an Olympian from many, many years ago who now needs prescription medicine. He's living in a trailer. He's borrowing electric power through an extension cord from his neighbors. And he could use some help. And we all said, well, what can we do? Well, we passed a hat. We raised about $600-700. We sent it to the guy, and he was able to benefit from our gift, although he did not live more than a year beyond that. And even though we passed away, we all felt good about what we'd done. So we said, well, why don't we create, because the U.S. Olympic Committee is worried about the next Olympic team.
Right.
Their responsibility is not about the last one. But the alumni felt we can do something. So we created a nonprofit 501c3 to benefit Olympians who, through no fault of their own, have fallen on hard times. I call it a speed bump, accident, illness, injury, natural disaster. And those things we'd like to help. And so the program was created officially in 2006, and we've donated, hundreds of thousands of dollars to Olympians who apply for it. And if they get a fellow Olympian or a Paralympian to endorse their application, the money can go up. So we're using each other's bond. We're using our community to grow more community.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when the fires hit in Southern California, a lot of Olympians live in Southern California, and they've all, are at risk, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Many Olympians are too proud to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's up to us to go, digging through the bushes to find people who need help.
Mm-hmm.
And the Olympians and Paralympians Relief Fund, that's opr.fund on the World Wide Web.
Mm-hmm.
We raise money from Olympians and give it to Olympians or Paralympians. And it feels good to do it. We don't solve their problems,
Mm-hmm.
but we show solidarity.
Yeah, for sure. And you're speaking to a kindred spirit here. I mean, Legends of Sport was founded on the principle of helping athletes who might have fallen on hard times, or even the ego of the spotlight just moving away from them. But it was really about, for me and my partners, athletes who we were aware of, who we were heroes of ours, who didn't make the big money back then and need some help, and like you said, too proud to ask for it. And the stories was just coming out of the woodwork. So we decided, well, we'll start Legends of Sport and we'll see what we can do to help, which is a great thing.
Are you a 501c3? Are you
We're not. That's going to come next. And in fact, it was Kobe himself who told me, God bless him. He said, Andy, you need to have a business first so that this 501c3 will follow suit. Right. So you need to establish what Legends of Sport is, which we've been doing through the podcast and events and other things we've been doing. And my bandwidth was pretty stretched because I was still the NBA photographer. I retired finally after 43 years last season. So now I have a little bit more time and energy and able to get this thing off the ground further. But the foundation part of it will come next. Yeah, for sure.
Do I have 3 minutes to tell you my favorite Kobe Bryant story?
Oh, it's on my list. I wanted to ask you if you ever met him and what do you got? Yeah, for sure.
I have met him, and I heard a story. I met him at the USA Swimming Annual Awards banquet. He was a presenter, and I asked him to confirm the story, which he did.
Uh-huh.
Here's the story. It's Beijing, so it's 2008.
Uh-huh.
The Olympics in 2008, he was on the basketball team, and the opening ceremonies, the athletes march in. You may remember the name Terry Schroeder.
Sure.
He's an Olympic water polo player who was and is the epitome of a male physique in the Olympics. They made the statue of him in front of the Coliseum. Terry Schroeder realized that Kobe Bryant was going to be a center of attention. As they walk out of the tunnel, all the cameras are going to go to the basketball players. So Terry Schroeder sidles up and marches in next to him. And they're marching into the tunnel, and there is a Chinese fan. The Chinese love Kobe, and this one Chinese fan is leaning up against the barricade, yelling, Kobe, 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 Kobe. And he was so overcome with emotion, he leapt over the barricade and is running towards Kobe to give him a hug.
Oy.
And no kidding. Yeah. He eluded security. Well, Terry Schroeder's a water polo player, and he sees this guy coming. And Terry Schroeder says, I don't think strangers are allowed in here. So he lowers his shoulder and he gives him a water polo boost. Boom. Yeah. And he knocks the tourist in the air, lands on his butt. The security guys are all over him. And the two of Kobe and Terry continue to march into the opening ceremonies. And Kobe elbows Terry Schroeder and he says, thanks, man. And Terry goes, no, it's nothing. It's no problem, really. And no. You did a big thing. Thanks, man. And he reaches up and he takes out one of his 3-carat diamond earring studs and he gives it to Terry Schroeder and says, give that to your woman. And Terry looks at it and I couldn't possibly. And he hands it back to Kobe and Kobe says, okay. And he puts it back in his ear and they march into opening ceremonies.
Yeah.
That's the story that I heard, and Kobe endorsed it. He acknowledged it. And to me, it reflects the community at the Olympic level. NBA player and no-name water polo player, and they get together and they connect.
Wow, what a beautiful story. I've heard a million Mamba stories, but I never heard that one. That's a great story. Did you see it play? I mean, living in L.A., I'm sure you've been to many.
I was actually at his final game where he scored 60.
Oh, unbelievable.
It was remarkable. Just wonderful to behold.
Yeah, I was there, of course, and I was with him all day. We started early in the morning, and I came up with him from Orange County. And I always say that we live in Hollywood, but nobody could have written that script. It's just like unbelievable. The guy dropped 60 after, blowing his Achilles 4 years earlier. It was incredible. So miss him a lot. But thank you for that story, John. That was amazing. So, John, how involved are you in swimming now? I mean, you're a grandpa. Do you have kids who swim? I mean, what do you got going on with swimming?
We have one child, an adult daughter. She's been married for 15 years,
Mhm.
and I doubt that we will see a grandchild.
Mm.
So on that basis, we took the college fund and are spending it on travel.
Okay, I
Like to
like it.
travel and see the world.
Yeah.
I was involved in raising money to build the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center here in Pasadena. And as a result, I go down there as often as I can to swim laps.
Ah.
I'm not racing. I'm not on the Masters team. I just swim laps. It
Yeah.
feels good. I'm a huge guy. I'm 6.5 feet tall. And on land, my joints tend to hurt. But supported by the water, like a big blue whale, I can just sort of coast along.
Yeah, that's great. And how are you looking forward to 2028 in LA?
It's going to be great. Well, I was on that 1984 organizing committee with Peter Ueberroth, and those games brought the city together like no other. I'm hoping that the LA 2028 games will do the same.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't know about the whole carless Olympic thing that the mayor's talking about, but the fact that they're putting swimming in SoFi Stadium, logistically, engineering-wise, I don't even know how that's going to happen. But it's going to be pretty unbelievable, I think. What an incredible thing. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Well, John, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking the time today. There's a lot of other things I'd love to talk to you about, but I will promise you that I have a signed Mamba Mentality book for you if you give me one of your books. And since we live near each other, I think we could make that happen.
I think so. I'd be happy to do it.
Well, it's super great to meet you, man. And thanks again for taking the time. And I hope we do get to see each other soon, John.
Well, which book do you want? Do you want my innovation book? Do you want my Olympic trivia book? Or do you want the Awaken the Olympian Within book?
Well, that's a tough call. Let's see.
I think you want the trivia book. I think because you like a lot of.
I do like trivia, but I love hearing people's stories too, and I'm sure there's some stories of Legends of Sport guests or friends that I have in the sports world that are in your book. So we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, so great to see you, man. Thanks so much for taking the time and for everything you're doing, everything you did during the fires. I mean, it was a horrific time for all of us, but we did our best. We did a print drive. I had about 35 photographers donate prints, and we raised some money for the fire victims, especially for the small businesses, because not only people lose their homes, they lost their businesses too. So we tried to help a little bit, and I'm sure that was very rewarding for you as well. So it's great to see you, John. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay, take care. See you soon. Okay. Big thanks to John Naber for chatting with me on this episode. I really enjoyed getting to know him. I hope you all enjoyed listening to him too. Thanks for tuning into this episode and for continuing to support the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. Please follow them on Instagram at FujifilmX_US. Again, that's at FujifilmX_US. Folks, please tell all your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Legends of Sport, and to our Instagram at Legends of Sport. And my photography can be found on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. Thanks as always to our producer, Carlin Barker, and our editors, Sean Gosser and Addison Shao. Thanks again, everyone, for checking out this episode. We'll be back next week with another great episode on the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm.